Hello and welcome to another video on Hell Loose. In this one, I will be taking a look at all the infantry weapons in the game and ranking them from best to worst. But before I get started, I want to give a shout out to my friend Terry Dactyl. Terry's a fellow YouTuber who not only helped me make this video, but also has guides on specific weapons as well for Hell Loose, so make sure to check out his channel. And as always, please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you check out the playlist at the end of the video to see all of my guides for this game. Alright, let's get started. In order to properly rank the weapons in Hell Loose, we mostly need to take into account accuracy, rate of fire, and damage. But we also need to consider the context of the game itself. Most of the firefights in Hell Loose take place at medium to long range, with several maps featuring wide open fields which allow you to take shots at enemies that are 100 or 200 meters away. Even up close, weapons like the Thompson that require multiple shots to down an enemy are at a disadvantage against rifles that are one shot to kill. Rate of fire is meaningless when you only need one shot. This intrinsically favors ranged accuracy and low damage drop-off over rate of fire, meaning weapons must be ranked accordingly. Keep in mind that there is also a personal bias based on my own experience with each weapon and my own gameplay style, but I believe this ranking accurately represents both my thoughts and that of several veteran players with whom I talked to while making this video. So here we go, let's start from the top with the best weapon in the game, the M1 Garand. This is the standard rifle for the allied team, and it is quite simply the best gun in the game. It is incredibly accurate both with single shots at ranged and under sustained semi-auto fire. Damage is the same as most rifles in the game, with one shot to kill up to 100 meters and two shots at 200 meters. Bullet drop is the best in the game, which is pretty weird since not even the sniper rifles are this good. It remains incredibly accurate even at 200 meters. Up close, it's really easy to take on multiple enemies at once thanks to the great rate of fire and recoil, which makes the gun very easy to control while switching between several different targets. With capacity for 8 bullets, you have plenty of shots to take down 3 or 4 enemies at once, or even an entire enemy squad. If an enemy infantry misses with a car, it's very easy to quickly turn around and fire multiple shots at them before they even have time to fire a second round, meaning that you have the upper hand in almost every engagement. Overall, the M1 Garand has great accuracy, great rate of fire, and damage, making it an extremely effective weapon in any encounter. With only 8 rounds, it has the smallest clip size out of all the semi-auto rifles in the game, but the fast reload time pretty much makes this a non-issue. Up next in the A tier, we have the M1 Carbine and Gewehr 43. The Carbine or Carbine is considered by some to be better than the Garand due to it having a larger 15 bullet clip while being pretty much identical in everything else. However, the M1 Carbine does have more bullet drop, especially after 100 meters, making it not as effective at range. However, it really is a toss-up between the Carbine and the Garand when it comes to the best gun in the game. I personally prefer the Garand as I find myself landing more shots with it since I often engage at long distances, but I know several people that prefer the Carbine. If you have to make a choice, I would say go for the Carbine for more urban maps since having a larger clip size is definitely an advantage in those cases. The Gewehr 43 is just slightly worse than the Carbine in basically everything, but it is by no means bad. It has slightly more vertical recoil, making it harder to control under sustained fire though. Bullet drop is also slightly increased at 100 meters, but it is much more consistent than the Carbine. Basically, the G43's bullet drop is linear, making it very easy to adjust to any range. The Carbine has almost a negligible drop at 100, but after that it drops dramatically, which explains why I always felt it easier to land shots with the G43 rather than the Carbine at range. Overall, the G43 is a great gun and definitely the best German gun in the game, but not as good as its American counterparts. It has a 10 bullet clip which places it just over the Garand, but doesn't make much of a difference. I really like the sights on the Gewehr and it's definitely my go-to gun whenever I'm playing the German team. Alright, now we get to some of my favorite guns in the game in terms of just fun to use. The BAR and the STG are the tier B guns. I used to think of the STG as the poor man's BAR, but I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. The STG is an absolute beast of a gun that excels at medium and short range. In urban environments like Saint-Maurice and Carentan, the STG is maybe the best gun that you could use. It has great fire rate, better than the BAR and any semi-auto counterpart, paired with a controllable recoil, great iron sights, and an absolutely massive 30-round magazine which allows you to overwhelm your enemies with firepower. This is pretty much the perfect run-and-gun, one-man army kind of gun, and it is fantastic once you get some practice with it. Over long distances, it can be quite inconsistent, suffering from the same problem as the Carbine. Basically, the STG's bullet drops very hard after 100 meters, while the BAR drop is much more linear. This means that at range, you will often need to take several shots to take down a single target, which will often leave you exposed and vulnerable to enemy fire. The BAR's better range makes it a slightly more versatile gun. Rate of fire is slower and magazine size is only 20 rounds compared to the STG's 30, making it much weaker in comparison. As such, this is a great weapon for mid-range firefights dealing with multiple enemies. Think of it as an easier to use Carbine or Garand that allows you to spam more bullets with little penalty. I love using the BAR in maps like Foy when you have a mix of forest, urban areas, and wide open fields. In all of these environments, the BAR remains effective, especially in wooded areas where you might want to track a target while shooting him through the trees. In terms of which is better, I think the BAR is easier to use than the STG given its fire rate and more predictable bullet drop, but I think the STG is way more suited to an aggressive playstyle, so it really comes down to personal preference. Now we get to the bottom of the barrel. Even though this is the tier C, there is quite a difference between this gun and other guns that I've already discussed. This is the Kar 98. The Kar 98 is decidedly worse than every other rifle in the game. Even though it's fairly accurate, it is not as accurate as the Garand, and it has a frustratingly slow fire rate which often results in an instant failure when facing multiple targets. To make things worse, it can only load 5 bullets at a time, and reloading before emptying the gun rewards you with pretty much the longest reload in the entire game. While the Garand or the Carbine can very easily clear out an entire spawn wave of enemies, the Kar can only ever deal with one enemy at a time. As such, it is best suited at range or in a defensive position, waiting for the enemy soldiers to come to you. The Kar demands accuracy from the player, as missing a single shot can be punished right away. I mentioned earlier that gunfights in Hell Let Loose tend to occur at medium to long range distances, and as such, the true failures of the Kar 98 are often hidden by the style of most of the encounters. But make no mistake, this is a terrible weapon. And lastly, we get to tier D, the Thompson and the MP40, with the MP40 being the better gun here. Now, the reason why I place these below the Kar is that the Kar can kill single targets faster than either of the SMGs at basically any range. In close quarters, assuming 100% accuracy, the Kar user will down the SMG user in one bullet, making rate of fire completely irrelevant, as I explained earlier. At range, It will also down enemies faster, especially when firing at multiple targets, since ranged accuracy is quite poor for the SMGs, especially the Thompson. Making this worse, they need 4 bullets to kill at 100 meters, so not only do you have a problem landing shots, but need to land several of them to get the job done. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the differences between them. The Thompson has a better rate of fire, but has a considerably higher bullet drop than the MP40, making it better for close quarters engagements. It has a 30 round magazine just like the MP40, so not a lot of difference there. Unlike the Thompson, the MP40 remains viable at mid-range, with better bullet drop and more controllable recoil, making it the better gun overall. It's a fairly good gun for close quarters and can be still somewhat effective at shooting those guys that you see running across open fields. Overall, both of these weapons suffer from a lack of damage and range that sends them to the back of the list due to the nature of the engagements in Hell Let Loose. A lot of people will argue that they aren't that bad because they are fully automatic and you can take down multiple people fairly quickly, but think about it this way. Everything that these guns do, the semi-auto rifles do better. I would include the MGs in this list, but I think the playstyle for both the Browning and the MG42 is so much different from the way the rest of the infantry plays that I feel like a comparison wouldn't be fair. However, I will say that the MG42 is better than the Browning, with better fire rate and almost no bullet drop. However, both are strangely better than the SMGs if you can manage to control the recoil while firing without the bipod. Okay, and lastly, I know a lot of people will probably ask this in the comments, so I will talk about it now. What does this mean in terms of balance? Well, the fact that the Garand, the most common weapon in the Allied army, is way better than the car and the best semi-auto rifle in the entire game is a problem. I would like to see some changes to make the Garand not the best gun in every single parameter, but would also like to see the car get a buff. Maybe, I don't know, increase the recoil of the Garand and increase the accuracy of the car at distances and make the cycling action slightly faster. I think that would go a long way towards balancing both teams. The rest of the weapons like the STG and the BAR, the Thompson and the MP40 are pretty evenly matched, to the point that I don't think anything else needs to be tweaked. But I do think the Garand is too good given how prevalent it is. Alright guys, that will be all for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, consider subscribing. I'm trying to make more videos per week. I'm also streaming twice per week or more, so stay tuned for that, and maybe follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss out on any of the live streams. Okay guys, as always, thanks for watching, and I hope I will catch you in the next one.